So Mike Callicrate is one of our clients and one of my friends, and he's he's got an outlet, a sales outlet for his beef and his chicken and pork products in a town called Colorado Springs in Colorado, just near Denver. And then he's got a farm about 3 or 4 hours into Kansas, just over on the Kansas border. In western Kansas, quite dry and very sandy. And it's right on top of the, I'm going to say this incorrectly, the Oliga Aquifer, which is one of the biggest underground lakes in the world, and its shoreline is diminishing. And he gets most of his water from that. Anyway, years ago, he just built one of the newest feedlots. I think it was a 12,000 head feedlot on his farm, and he got locked out of, because he's a fairly big advocate for the small farmer. Anyway, he had a bit of a barney with some of the food, with some of the abattoirs, and they locked him out of being able to get his supply chain was broken. So imagine you've just borrowed all this money, built a 12,000 head feedlot, state of the art, all the bloody silos, all the concrete, all the fencing, blah, 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 big investment, and you've done that predicated on a part of your supply. It's like setting up a dairy, and then the milk company says, no, I won't buy your milk off you, right? Or I won't, you set up your macadamias, I won't buy your macadamias, whatever. So anyway, with that, being who he is, he went and he found these semi-trailers that were being used to ship whole carcasses around America, and turned one of them into, he bought it for whatever sum, and for about 150 grand, he built a mobile slaughterhouse. Except it's not more mobile, he put it on wheels, because as soon as you put a building on wheels, it's no longer a building, it's not fixed. And so the municipality didn't have a box to put it in, because if you look at a lot of your planning schemes around the world, you can't have an abattoir on a farm. Right? That's an industrial land use. It's got to be in an industrial area. Right? So anyway, he did that. With that, he now didn't need that apparatus of the industrial food chain. And with that, he then found, well, I better start selling this as well. So he set up his own shop in Colorado Springs, and off it went from there. And he's done really well with it. Which is great. He's a lovely fellow. Really, he's an amazing man. Really great man. Anyway, part of that consultancy and some others that we were doing around this, that were with other clients, was trying to work out this process. Now, when I think of processes, I read a book in 1993, 94 called The E-Myth, written by Michael Gerber. Some of you might have heard it. It's called The Entrepreneurial Myth. And it is fundamentally a book about developing any business so that it's what's called a franchise prototype. And probably the best known franchise prototype is McDonald's. So if any of you have seen the Founder, the film The Founder, great film and disturbing film at the same time. The whole big bad story about that is how Ray Kroc basically stole the process, the franchise prototype model that the two McDonald's brothers had developed, because their strategic advantage over every other burger joint was that every burger was always the same, and their time and motion, the cost control on producing all of those burgers was the same as well. And so that's all an outcome of monitoring. So it's also an outcome of you understanding what the whole flow of any production will be. And this is where you have, it doesn't matter what you do in agriculture, you will have one of these. And it won't be, you could basically take this chart and swap out the parts. This could be forestry, this could be chickens, this could be vegetables, right? It could be anything. When you go through a process of production, the value chain, you're going from the paddock, the field, it then goes and gets processed. It then goes through some post-processing, it goes into inventory, it goes into sale, distribution, then it goes into someone, and then then there's a retail purchase, which if you look at it ordinarily is the end, right? The end of the transaction. And then you've got a waste stream that comes from that potentially. So if you're a vegetable grower, you've got the scraps which go into the, that's why a lot of councils are doing a lot with trying to do composting and vegetable, because 75 or so % of our landfill waste is organic, and we're going, bloody hell, this is crazy, and it's producing methane. It's just a waste of product. So we looked at that and went, all right, well, where's the water that's involved in this? Where's the nutrient that's involved in this? Where are the two put together? And when you do that, you sort of go, oh, okay, I can start to look at ways that I can get some cycling here and potentially get some money. So we did that. And one of the things that Mike did was he produced, I'll show you this later when we do some, no I won't, because I haven't got it in here. One of the things that he did was we looked at the bones. Because I said to him, gee, you're exporting all these bones off because you get a carcass. About 40% of a cow is sold meat. So when a cow leaves a property, about 40% of it is actually sold as meat. The rest is blood, the rest is bones, hide and viscera, right? All of which you don't, the butcher doesn't get any payment for. So when you go and buy, just meat, butchers love selling products with bones in them because they're getting paid for the bones that they had to pay for. Otherwise it's a waste product, right? Or they get a really low value for it. So when you buy some sort of cut that's like ribs, they love selling ribs because it's mostly bone and a little bit of meat. And so, but what happens to the bones? Now bones have about, when you look at the chemical composition of bones, they're about the same as superphosphate. About the same proportion of phosphorus and calcium. So, what happens with bones is they don't break down in the environment. That's why when archaeologists find skeletons. They don't break down. But if you burn the bones, then that breaks the bond, the really strong bond between the calcium and the phosphorus, and then that phosphorus and calcium becomes water soluble. And so now you can get a cycling of that phosphorus that you're exporting off your farm otherwise. So Mike did that. He charred the bones, and now he sells some of the bones, but most of the bones come back to his farm in a state that's completely safe from a mad cow disease perspective, because no organism can survive the incineration or the charring process, and that goes back onto his fields, and now he doesn't have to buy any fertiliser. Plus he makes a shitload out of putting it in a little 1 pound bags. He's got a couple at the front of his shop. He's got a couple of like fruit bins with what's the term? Wicking beds. He's got them out the front of his shop, Aussie idea. And he's got his garden. He's got one that's got biochar in it, one that's not got biochar. People go, wow, look at that thing, it's just jumping out of the ground because it's got all this phosphatic fertiliser, and the other one hasn't, and away you go. Money for jam.